What is up, anglers? This is California fishing news for March 12th. We got a lot to talk about today. We'll talk about the bluefin, we'll talk about the rockfish, white sea bass, yellowtail. We're going to talk about surf fishing, grunion runs, the lobster season coming to an end. Talk about the San Francisco Bay fishing. There's a little change in the seasons going on up there. And we'll finish up talking about some freshwater stuff. And to start, I've got a pretty cool, exciting story about an offshore trip I did a couple of weeks ago. Before we get into all that, just a reminder, if you're just listening to this, every episode's also on YouTube. This one is going to have a lot of photos involved. So if you listen and you want to check out the photos, you can go watch it on YouTube. And if you're watching this on YouTube, it's also available on all of the podcast apps and platforms. If you haven't, you can check out the website, cafishingnews.com. Go to trip reports. I've got 4 old trip reports I wrote. They're long form. They're good reads. If you're bored and sitting on the toilet or something, check those out there. And don't forget to subscribe on YouTube or your podcast app, whatever you do. Leave me a 5-star rating if you like it, and share it with your friends. Thank you very much. Let's get into it. First off, for this story time, I want to talk about something that happened to me on February 28th. For people who listen every week or every episode, I was going to spend some time at my parents' house and do some fishing. And I fished like 5 days that week. I wish I could sit here and tell you I slayed the fish, but the truth is I didn't. I got skunked a few times and caught a couple, but nothing too special. But did have a really exciting experience on that Friday. It was the 28th of February, and I got an invite to go out offshore with my old buddy Nate Wells. He's one of the North County depth finders, and a couple other guys from the club, Christian and Nathan Minata. I had never met Christian or Nathan before. They're cool guys, and we knew it was a long shot. We were just going to go offshore at Oceanside, check some patties for yellows, and maybe, if we're really lucky, run into those bluefin. We didn't bring bait or anything because it's primarily a spearfishing trip. But we brought a tuning gun, we brought small guns for the patties, and then we were ready to go inshore just in case it all didn't pan out. So we head offshore and we found a few patties, nothing too crazy. Some had no bait on them, some did have some nice bait on them. I'm going to throw up some photos that Nathan took that day. Nathan's got a sweet underwater camera and a drone, so he takes really cool footage. Some of them were loaded with bait and some half moons, blue perch, and yeah, but that was pretty much it. And then we started heading north, just doing a loop up towards Newport, and we saw, Nate had really good eyes. Nate saw a shark, just a fin sticking out. We couldn't really see what it was. Nathan got the drone up and we got some footage of it from above. That was kind of cool. We think that one was a big mako. And then we're keep motoring her on, just keeping an eye out for patties or for any surface activity. And we see some splashes. We're really confused. It wasn't dolphin. At one point, it almost looked like the pec fin of a whale. And finally, we get up close to it and we realize it's 2 thresher sharks. And these threshers are probably like 5 or 6 feet long with their body and then have their 4 or 5 foot long tail. If you've never seen a thresher, they've got this really long, awesome tail. And I'm putting up some pics now. And they swam right underneath the boat. They circled the boat for a bit. We watched them. It was really an insane experience. Just 2 of them. They were just beautiful creatures swimming right around the boat. So we watched them for a while, and Nathan hopped in the water. I wanted to get some shots in the water with them, but by that time they were about 50 feet off the boat, and we couldn't really see them. So it was really, really cool. And after that, we decided, we had no luck. We didn't see any tuna. All we really saw was porpoise and some empty patties. And so we decided to head into an inshore spot, anchor up, and at least, get a dive in so everyone can get wet and maybe shoot a little calico or sheepshead or something. So we anchor at the first spot. This is an Oceanside off Pendleton. It's not really a secret spot. I'm not going to, whatever. If you know the area, you might know what it is. Anyways, we anchor in 30 feet, and the viz is okay. It's like 15, 20 feet at the top, but then the bottom 10 feet has this pretty gnarly murk layer where the viz goes down to like 5 to 7 feet. So we dived there for a while, and there was bait, there was stuff, there was Garibaldi, there were short lobsters. I had one shot at a calico right as it disappeared out of my view and I missed. And that was pretty much it at that spot. And we all get back in the boat and we're deciding, and we were kind of off the structure. We really wanted to dive. So we decided to go anchor on the structure and give it one more shot. We move and we anchor up. This is actually in 20 feet of water. And 3 of us get in the water. Nathan actually stays in the boat because we're only going to give it like 20 minutes at this point. And Nathan changes out of his wetsuit. We're diving a bit. Christian gets out of the water. He gets in the boat, just me and Nate. And we look at each other. We're like, we'll just give it a couple more dives and we'll get in. So we each punch like one more dive. And we're at the surface looking at each other like, man, there's just not many fish here. And Nathan's in the boat. Nate is about 5 feet off the right side of the boat, and I'm maybe 15 feet past him. And we're in the water, and you just hear Christian from the boat go, "Shark, shark," and points. And my first thought is this dude's just messing with us because we've had such a sharky day. But then I poke my head back in the water and look, and around the front of the boat swims a great white shark. It was only about 6 feet. We're thinking like 5 to 7 feet. It wasn't huge. But this thing, it turns and it looks right at Nate, and Nate puts a spear gun up and just watches it. And then it like turns away from Nate and looks at me. And this thing was definitely curious about what we were. And this thing made eye contact with me, I swear. Its head was about the size of a basketball. And I just stared back at it. I had a little, it's a 90 centimeter spear gun. It's going to do nothing to this shark, but it's nice to have something pointy between you and the shark. So I pick up my spear gun. He's probably 5 feet off the tip of my gun, literally 10 feet from me. And he looks at me for a few seconds, and then he just slowly swims on. And it was just crazy. I mean, a bunch of guys, you spearfish a lot of guys have had, great white shark experiences. And it's pretty rare for anyone to get bit. But it's still, there's nothing like seeing it in the water. Honestly, it didn't scare me that much. I'm not saying because I'm really brave or anything. It was just the way we were warned, and then we made eye contact, and it wasn't a big one. And I know, because I know about sharks a little bit, that they don't even switch to eating large mammals until they're like 10 or 12 feet long. And this thing was definitely still a fish eater. It was a baby, but it was pretty crazy. Nate, I guess, has dove that spot twice. This is the second time, and the first time he saw a great white there too. So it was a real sharky spot. Yeah, it was crazy. It was pretty cool though. I was lucky to be in the water and see it. Nathan was kind of mad. He was like, "Damn, dude, I wish I was in the water with my camera." Unfortunately, we didn't get any photos of it because Nathan was already like putting all his stuff away and he was dry. But yeah, I swam with a great white shark. It was nothing like, if you guys know who Chris Oak is, he's one of the guys who runs spearing for him. He's been full on charged by great whites twice, and he's got some footage of him, like big great whites from below over Catalina. It was nothing like that. It was just cruising in. It was curious. It looked at us. But yeah, it was really kind of a special experience. So glad everything worked out. We're happy, but we had a real sharky day out there with those 2 threshers, the mako we saw, and that great white. All right, that's it for that story. Besides that week, I surfished a couple times. I only threw the Lucky Craft really, and I got hit once but missed it. I bass fished twice. One day I got completely skunked with my dad, and the next time was a Wednesday. It was the 26th of February, and we got one like 4.5 pounder. But that was the day that they had really high winds. It was like 55 mile an hour winds, and it was just real hard to fish. I don't have a real bass boat. I've got a little like 11-foot. It's like a Livingston with a trolling motor on the front, and it was just really hard to stay on points, and it was a pretty slow day for everyone. But at least we got that one. So yeah, I didn't get to fish as much as I would have liked. But that's life. When I'm back at my parents' house, I got to see my friends, see the family, do all that other stuff too. So it was still a nice week though. All right, let's get to the real stuff, the California fishing news. First up, bluefin. So before we talk about the reports and stuff, I want to back up and talk about the prospects for the season. So if you haven't you can check out JDSBigGame.com. He's a tackle shop up in Newport, and he puts up a fish report. And this is what he posted on Sunday, February 9th. Good news. This morning's AM radio fish talk radio program had Tom Green call in. He's a spotter pilot for the tuna fleet. As you know, the Pacific Luna tuna is under management, has a quota allowed harvest per year. He's been flying for 48 years and has a pretty good perspective on the West Coast ocean sea life. He's a good judge of size and massive tuna schools being seen from above. Quote, "If you thought the schools of tuna were big last year, wait till you see what's coming." Remarking of a school that he saw that was 2 miles in length and half a mile wide. Big Pacific bluefin tuna. Nothing looked to me under 160 pounds. The tuna fleet was able to obtain their yearly quota in February. In 3 weeks fishing time, they filled their whole quota. They were working their rounds about 40 miles above Cedros Island, and then by the end of the 3-week period, the schools were about 80 miles above Cedros. If you're curious about the quotas, they are run by the Inter-American Tropical Tuna Conservation, I believe, IATTC, and they set a quota for 2 years combined. So it's a 2019 to 2020 quota. The quota for the 2 years was 6,147 metric tons. A metric ton is 1,000 kilograms, so about 2,200 pounds. And last year they caught 2,500 18 metric tons. And this year, so far, they've already caught this year 3,271 metric tons, which puts them at about 5,800 metric tons, which still leaves like 356 metric tons, which is what they're allowed to catch in U.S. waters now. So they break up the quotas also by country. So it sounds like they filled all the Mexican one, and now they have a 356 metric ton left that they can catch once they move into U.S. waters. It's just pretty interesting. It's good to know they're being managed. It's a whole bunch of countries are in there. But lately, with the bluefin being over here, it's been mainly a Mexican waters thing. Now we're going to take a look at a map. If you're watching this, you can see Cedros Island is down here off the tip of Bahia Tortuga, and it's about 280 miles south of the border. So about 3 weeks ago, when they finished up, they were 80 miles north of that, which gives them about 200 miles left before they made it up here. And they said they were moving about 2 miles a day, but obviously it really depends. They'll move way more than that some days, and then other days, if there's like a path of cold, dirty water, they'll just sit there and they might move south again. They don't necessarily like move up 2 miles a day. But it's good to think about what's coming. Obviously, last weekend, the San Diego was fishing a 3/4 day. They went rock fishing over by the rock pile, and they had a whole bunch of 30 to 50 pound bluefin tuna blow up right next to them. I think they hooked a few and lost all of them. And then this last weekend, the Tomahawk and Pacific Queen went out there and targeted them. They both had good days. The Tomahawk had 13 anglers, landed like 11 of them, and the Pacific Queen landed 31 bluefin. They were mainly, I think, everything I've seen so far has been like 30 to 50 pounds. There have been some 100-pounders seen too. I haven't seen any photos anyone caught yet. Doesn't mean it hasn't happened. I just haven't seen it. But that's good to see. This was happening about 25 miles southwest of Ensenada, off the rock pile, the Banda Bank. This whole, if you're watching, I've got temp break up here. You can take a look. Otherwise, go to tempbreak.com. Look around like the 101, 425, upper finger, spread out down off Ensenada, and that's where the area it's been. When you think about the fish biomass, though, I like to imagine it as it's like a scatter plot. Like imagine you took a shotgun and shot a piece of paper. It's going to be way denser in the middle, and then there's going to be scattered random bits surrounding it as well, farther and farther out. So I imagine what we're seeing is really just the tip of what's coming up from below. There's probably a lot more tuna south still. I haven't heard anything of the 160, 200 pounders yet. So it's really awesome that they're here already. Hopefully they keep moving north. The water allows them to, and they push up into U.S. waters. I remember those tuna did show up in February up off Newport. Some of those could have even shot north. The past few years, there's been some up off of like Monterey, Morro Bay. People mainly fish for them down here, and the Central Cal guys are a lot more tight-lipped about everything. But yeah, they're here, and it's time. It should be a really epic season. Besides the sport boats, a few of the charter captains got on them too. Weston Bryant into the depth sport fishing. They had a good day or a good few days getting them. Dwayne Diego always killing it. He was out there, got a nice one. And Guardian Charters, which run spearfishing charters mainly, they got a handful as well. So you can go to any of their Instagrams to see these photos. A BD Bloody Decks user did put up a report of the Pacific Queen trip. He said they had about a 3-hour drift on the bluefin that started around 7:30 a.m. All of them were caught on bait. Lots of boils around the boat most of the drift. At one point, there were 10 hooked up. They had some casualties, but not too many. Everyone pretty much fished 40-pound fluoro with a 1/0 hook. He heard one person say they got one on 50-pound, but his was on 40. They also had like 66 yellowtail. They were off a patty, and they were like 4 to 8 pound kind of little rats, but still great eating little fish. Pretty awesome day-and-a-half trip for March to have 31 bluefin, really nice grade, and a bunch of rat yellowtail to fill it out. So there's a bunch of boats going out this weekend to target them. There's Poseidon doing a 1.75 day. There's Tomahawk, I believe, doing a 2-day trip, and then I'm sure there's a bunch of day-and-a-half. So if you're interested in heading out for them, go to your preferred landing website. You got Point Loma Sport Fishing, H&M Landing, Fisherman's Landing, and Seaforth. Check out their schedule and see the trip that works best for you. That's pretty much for the bluefin. I hope you guys go and get them. One other thing, if you're ever fishing for bluefin, I'm not an expert by any means, but I have found and talked to the deckhands and the guys who do really well. If you're ever in one of those, bluefin get really picky and they'll be eating every single piece of chum, but not taking any of the baits with a hook in it. If you've never done it before, just practice shoulder hooking stuff. It takes a little bit of getting used to it. I've probably mentioned it here before, but there's something about the shoulder hook that it just gets bit a little better a lot of the time. So it's worth checking out as a deckhand and just practice it. It takes a little bit. It's hard to hook them that way, especially with a circle hook, but you can definitely get it done. All right, that's it for bluefin. Moving on. Let's talk about rockfish and other stuff a little bit here too. Rockfish opener, of course, on March 1st. That day was really blown out with weather, but since then, the past 10, 11 days or so, plenty of boats been out there catching a lot of rockfish. Rockfish, it varies in the quality and the types. Everyone prefers reds, and you prefer big reds, and nobody really wants boccaccios or salmon groupers, whatever. But pretty much all the boats get the numbers done. You can usually get limits rockfish on a lot of these trips. The Poseidon posted on Instagram. They returned last night from their 2-day Joe charter. That's the guy who runs charters. You can check him out if you want to join him. But they did a 2-day to the Cortez Bank and San Clemente Island. They returned with limits rockfish, 250 right fish, 25 sheepshead, and a few calicos. So much fun nonstop action. They also posted they had incredible signal of yellowtail, but with 60-degree water, didn't manage any bites. So it's good to know these yellowtail were out there. They were in about 20 fathoms, 120 feet of water. I don't know if that's at the bank or at San Clemente, who knows, but it's good to know that a bunch of yellowtail are out there as well. Otherwise, there's plenty of inshore, closer rockfish too. Brothers Sport Fishing, it's a little charter 6-pack boat, 4-pack boat. They posted on the 8th, low winds have allowed for great bottom fishing. These school of reds have been on very small spots, 1 drop and reset. That's something that I've read a lot back when I would read Fish Dope and other stuff like that. The stuff that's close to home, the bigger spots get hit up by this. They get pounded by the half-day boats and such, but there's a lot of really small stones that will hold really nice reds, but they're not very big spots. So you got to meet around, you got to find them, look at your charts, and then set up a drift. And like they said, it's usually like 1 drop, and then you're off the spot, and you got to reset and do it. But there are plenty of good spots around locally. You just got to go out and find them. Moving on, the Pursuit out of 22nd Street. They're doing full-day Catalina trips. Good rock fishing, good some inshore stuff too. And they also had 2 yellowtail, a 14-pounder and a 20-pounder. So it's definitely still some yellows at Catalina and some white sea bass. Moving on kind of to white sea bass. So first, we're going to take a look. This is the 976 fish counts from March 8th, so Sunday. Sunday's the best day to look because you get all the day and a half from Saturdays and you get everything. Rockfish dominated the counts with 7,200 rockfish, 4,000 whitefish, about 1,000 red snapper or vermilion reds. And then it goes down there to sculpin, some boccaccio, sand dabs, sheepshead, blah, blah. There was 105 yellowtail caught that day on that Saturday. I think 66 of those were Pacific Queens, and then I'm not sure exactly if those other ones came through. Some bonito caught as well, and 41 bluefin tuna. That is 31 off the Pacific Queen and 10 off the Tomahawk. So go to 976, click on fish counts. You can pick the date and you can see what's being caught, and you can scroll down. You can see the different landings and seeing who is catching what. Up next, we're going to talk about white sea bass specifically. The PAC Fisheries, it's the Pacific Fisheries Enhancement. They raise white sea bass in the Balboa Angling Club harbor pens and then release some locally. They've posted 3 the past few weeks of their local slugs. Steady _ drift, early season beast. This thing looks like a 60-pounder. And this was a coastal one, so coastal, not an island fish, basically. Another one they posted on March 4th, and then the first one was a 56-pounder caught on 12-pound line on February 25th. So there's definitely some white sea bass around. I'm sure some have been speared. Nobody really talks about that stuff. It sucks with the lack of kelp. A lot of the kelp beds we used to have here the past, normally here 5-10 years or whatever, a lot of the kelp beds are gone. And the white sea bass, you find them in the kelp pretty much, exclusively. On squid beds and other stuff too, but it sucks. Without the big kelp beds that people want to target them, you're getting forced to fish fewer and fewer areas, which makes people even quieter and quieter about it. But they are out there. If you want to go put in the time looking for ghosts, you can do it. It's up to you. If you want to learn how to do it, you can always contact Bite Sport Fishing. It's BIGHT Sport Fishing. What's his name? Brandon Hayward runs it, and then Wes. Wes was on Cast and Crank podcast. It's a good listen if you guys want to check it out. I fished with Wes once on a bluefin spearing charter, and I like the dude a lot. It was a good time. I did not spear bluefin. I whiffed, but that's another story. Haunts me to this day. I can still see the tuna in my mind. But they have caught a few white sea bass this year. In February, they had a number of little schooler fish, they call them. The school fish are still 20 to 30 pounds. And then they got a couple good ones. These look like 40 pounders or so. This was posted on a week ago, March 3rd or so. March 5th maybe. But they've got some open for charter in March 25th to the 31st. They fish mainly Catalina these days. I think it's because they know the island and the coastal spots are more limited, but they really know what they're doing. They're there's other charter boats too, but they're the most well-known on social media that spends a lot of time targeting white sea bass specifically. They really know what they're doing. So if you want to learn this fishery, that's a good place to start. Let's move on to the next topic. We're going to talk about surf fishing. Not much of a change there. Still plenty of fish being caught. If you're in the Facebook groups, check out West Coast Surf Fishing on Facebook. That's my favorite one. Barred surf perch being caught. I haven't seen too many corbina, but there's still some being caught. I've seen more yellowfin croaker being posted. A couple stripers from the Central California guys, Oxnard, Ventura, and North. Yeah, that's about it. What I found, because I did surf fish those 2 days, surf fishing in winter can be good with quality, but there's not necessarily as many fish. You got to work for it and put in the time. But if you do it, you can definitely catch some fish. The main thing, though, I want to talk about with this is the grunion runs. We had the first grunion run of the year. There's actually a little one in February they don't even talk about, but I saw some stuff about that posted on the internet. But if you just Google California grunion runs, you can get the schedule. They run around it's around the moon phase, around the new and the full moon. So they posted all the dates. There's one happening right now, or today's like the last day of it, and another one through the 24th through 27th this month. In April and May, you're not allowed to take the grunions. You can just observe or observation only, but it's still a good time to go either fish or spear those beaches. I remember years ago there was a report, Pierre Yaldo's a spearo. He doesn't live locally anymore, but I bought a nice spear gun off of him. He was a good spearo, and he speared like a 45-pound halibut or something on a shore dive at night during a grunion run. Apparently they feast on all the fish that are there, and they get real lazy, and they just don't even bury themselves sometime, and they just lay there. So it can be a really good time to go spearing. If you got a light from lobster diving anyways, go at night and check it out. And fishing too. I've never really fished grunion runs at night in the surf. From what I've read online from the Facebook groups and tips people give, they say you kind of want to fish the edges of the run. You also don't want to be like there with your big light before it starts. Apparently, I don't know the validity of this. This is what people said. The grunion will send up a couple scouts first, and if they get spooked, then the grunion won't make the big run. So be quiet and don't blast them out first. The times given for each date, if you go and Google this is what I'm just reading now. They reflect the probable 2-hour interval in which the spawning may occur. The second hour is usually better. And it's a 4-night thing, but the best runs usually occur on the second and third nights of the 4-night periods. They spawn on many beaches, but not every beach. And I've looked for them in my life, and I've seen a few, but I've never seen like the photos you see of thousands of them on the beach. They recommend calling your state and county beach lifeguards, and they might be able to give you a little more information. But yeah, that's it. People collect them. You have to have a license. You can only pick them up by hand. No digging holes, no buckets, no tools. But you can fry them whole. They're supposed to be real nice to eat themselves. And then also, like I said, you can fish around them yourself. Boom, that's it for surf fishing, guys. Go out there and get them. Moving on, it's going to be quick, this topic, but just lobster. The season closes, technically it is the first Wednesday after the 15th of March, which makes this year the last minute you can go diving or hoop net lobster is March 17th at 11:59 p.m. So you got about 5 days left to go get the lobsters for the year if that's your deal. All right, that's it for the Southern California saltwater stuff, guys. There was a bunch of halibut caught in February. I haven't seen too many posted recently, but the focus is off them now. Before the rock fishing season opens, people don't have much to target, so they spend their time targeting halibut. Now there's a lot of other stuff to target that's a little more consistent. So I'm sure there's still big halibut out there as well, but you're starting to see a little bit less of it. Oh, real briefly, I just want to talk about the weather. We've had a rainy week, at least in San Diego recently, but it looks good for this weekend. So all those trips this weekend should be totally fine. All right, let's move up to Northern California. Not a ton new up there, but basically the boats up fishing in San Francisco Bay are getting some halibut and some stripers. The numbers aren't great by any means, you know, but one boat had like 9 legals one day, but they had like 25 anglers. But they're posting more and more halibut, so it sounds like they're starting to move in, and some stripers as well. Besides that, there's still some Dungeness crab to be caught. I don't know how much longer the season goes. I should have looked it up, but I'm not going to do it now because it would take too long, but Google it yourself. You guys are smart. You can handle it. But out of Emeryville, the Pacific Pearl fished on March 7th. They had 21 anglers and got 210 Dungeness crabs. So still good Dungeness crab available if that's your deal. All right, and that's it for saltwater, guys. I hope you guys go fishing, get some good luck, catch a tuna, have fun, and let's move on to some freshwater stuff. Freshwater, first story we're going to talk about is for San Diego. A 105-pound blue catfish was caught out of Lower Otay in San Diego. Apparently the state record is only 113 pounds, and everyone on the forum seemed to think that there are bigger blue cats in Otay. So if you guys haven't, you can look at the photo here or just Google it. This thing is a monster. It's dark black. This guy, I mean, it's like a river monster. It's like something Jeremy Wade would catch. But that's pretty cool to see 100 plus blue catfish at one of our lakes. Really insane. I hope someone breaks the record soon because apparently there's bigger ones. And a lot of people don't target catfish in San Diego because, you know, well, fishing's got a little snooty lately and people only like to target the prize species and people are bass specialists or this or that. But we've got some world-class catfish fisheries between Otay and San Vicente. So if you want to give it a shot, that can be really fun. Congratulations to this guy. His name was, what is it, blah, 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 I've got it here. Ryan Holbert. So congrats, Ryan. Way to go, man. It's an outstanding fish. Other than that, for Southern California, trout season, it's still going on. They're still stocking and will for a couple weeks, but it will start to wind down. As the temps rise, it gets too hot for the trout, and all the things will stop, all the local lakes will stop stocking. I think April is pretty much the end of it for a lot of lakes. Cuyamaca, it's up in the hills. They can stock in the summer a little bit too, but if the trout fishing is your thing, go and get them while you still can. Lastly, or second to last, I guess, largemouth. They are fully moving up. In some lakes, they have reported on beds. Other lakes that are colder, a little higher elevation, it's just the males kind of moving up. But either way, it's starting to happen. The lake that I fish, where I got skunked completely, they posted their fish report saying the bass lull is finally over. Some males are starting to move up ahead of the females. So it's a great time to get out there and go bass fishing. Guys, if you're going to bed fish, please don't be Mike Long. Don't snag them. Release them quickly. Handle them nicely. Let the big ones, you know, do their thing. The 10-pounders are out there to make more babies. It's great. Also, there's been some really interesting threads. There's a guy on SD Fish. It's sdfish.com. They've got a very nice forum community. Unlike Bloody Decks, where everyone's kind of a dick online, SD Fish, everyone's pretty nice. And Q is the local fisheries biologist. It's not his real name. That's his whatever handle on the forums. But he made some threads about keeping bass. And he was just challenging the general notion we all have that we have to catch and release bass to keep the populations good. And basically, a lot of our lakes are actually overpopulated with bass. And this stunts their growth. There's too much competition for food. And we don't get the size of bass that we used to get. Back in the 80s and 90s, when a lot more seemed like 10-pound bass were caught, every one of those bass was killed and kept. But what that does is it allows the other fish to keep eating, and there's less competition, they can grow, and it makes them actually a little easier to catch too, because even though there's less of them, every time you catch and release a fish, it gets a little bit smarter, and it's going to be a little bit less likely to hit that lure. So when we're just releasing every fish, that's why the fisheries are getting tougher and they're getting smaller. So just something to keep in mind. I'm not saying go and kill big bass, and I would never keep a bass like a 5, 6, 8-pound bass. I would always release, because that could be someone else's, you know, fish of a lifetime and make their day. But it's not a bad idea. If you get a limit of, you know, 15, 16, 18-inch fish, take them home, eat them. They're good. Bury them in your garden, whatever. It can actually be good for the fisheries. And if you're interested in more on that, check out that thread. Just go on SD Fish, check it out. You can find it. Other than that, NorCal, it's got plenty of rainbow trout being caught in the rivers. Bass, it's starting to turn on up there too. Apparently the pre-spawn's happening. At Clear Lake, I think the water temps up to 54, 55 in some areas and still 51 in other areas. So when that happens, check out the warmer areas. The males are going to be moving up first. And then plenty of rainbow trout being caught at all of the usual spots, Truckee River, Sacramento River, stuff like that. I just want to point out too, we've had a really bad snowfall year, and the percent of average of the snowpack it's low. It's about 50% for a lot of the areas around Tahoe, Truckee. So that does not bode well for the creeks and rivers this year. It's only March. You know, we've had miracle Marches, as they call them, in the past. We can still get a lot of snowpack. Hopefully we do, because we need that for the state's water supply. That's it this week, guys. You know, I'm not sure if I'm going to do one next week necessarily, or keep them every 2 weeks. I kind of like doing them every 2 weeks. There's more to talk about, and if you do them every week, a lot of stuff just kind of stays the same. But we'll see. I monitor it all and see if there's something new to talk about. I will. Besides that, thanks for listening. Tell your friends, subscribe, check us out on YouTube if you're listening. Check us out on the podcast app if you're watching. And good luck out there, guys. Tight lines, and I'll be back next week.